In 3, 2, 1.
Good morning and welcome to the APN News press conference for today, Friday, the 31st of October, 2025. I am Cynthia Rutherford, the moderator, and to my right is Mr. Vince Roy Jordan, MP-elect. To his right is Mr. Aubrey Norton, the leader of the PNCR and chairperson of the APNU. To his right is Dr. Terence Campbell, who is the parliamentary lead for the APNU, and to his right, we have Mr. Ganesh Manhipal, MP-elect. Today's press conference will be read in two parts, and I now invite Mr. Norton to read the first part, followed by Dr. Campbell to read the second part.
Immigration and national security. The APNU coalition extend condolences to the family of Soraya Bourne. Ms. Samantha Roach, we stand with you in this time of grief. We extend wishes for speedy recovery to all the injured and affected individuals who are victims of the tragic explosion which occurred on Sunday, 26 October. It is quite saddening to see any loss of life. We affirm our concern and advocacy for the welfare of all affected families and demand that every needed state resource goes to their aid. We honor the instinctive role played by Ms. Shondell Smith in thwarting a more catastrophic event. Ms. Shondell Smith is an unsung hero. We appreciate that the police have in custody several alleged perpetrators and implore on them to leave no stone unturned and explore the full scope of this dynamic situation and tectonic event in our national security. It is useful to note that in the present environment, there is need for citizens' involvement in ensuring our people are safe and protected. In this regard, there is need for credible leadership of the Ghana Police Force to restore trust and confidence. Given the current and recent events involving explosives allegedly placed by foreign nationals, immigration and national security issues have surfaced again in a very negative light. Many people are understandably anxious, and the APNU will continue to represent and highlight citizens' concerns in a responsible way. The APNU is prepared to work with all stakeholders, both in and out of Parliament, to build a national safety infrastructure that will keep Guyanese safe and restore public confidence in the nation's security system. The APNU is well aware that these events have a foreign policy dimension and urges the government to address these as both national security and foreign policy issues. Government therefore needs to factor in the foreign policy element and respond appropriately. The tragic explosion has caused many Guyanese to live with fear. As a result of the information released by the police, the national conversation in immigration and national security is ongoing and is of utmost importance. It is in this context that we add our voice to augment citizens' concerns about the failures in our national security system. The APNU consistently raised this issue in the National Assembly, and therefore we call on the government to engage with APNU's often stated positions regarding immigration and national security. As it relates to immigration, APNU recommends that border policy be a focal point to counter illegal immigration. We advise that government adopt policies to ensure that citizens are secure and immigrants are appropriately documented and screened upon entry. We understand the initial humanitarian dynamic posed by issues within Venezuela's economy that launched an exodus to Guyana. However, the extant territorial controversy with Venezuela occasions the need for change so that our responses need to be agile, comprehensive, and strategic. We wish to remind the government that the life of every citizen is of paramount importance, and our security is non-negotiable and transcends political partisanship. We urge all Guyanese citizens to be vigilant in the face of the series of explosions that have shaken communities across our nation. We encourage citizens to engage in the national call for stronger action and the full mobilization of resources to enhance public safety. We acknowledge that the Safe City infrastructure initiated under our administration is proving useful in police operations, and we urge that every effort be made to expand it nationwide. Clearly, there needs to be significant investment in technology that will result in the protection and safety of all Guyanese. National security affected by the recent explosion and increasing cross-border movement treated as a secondary concern. Our borders span approximately 1,822 miles long, and of that total, approximately 462 miles are on the western border with Venezuela. APNU will therefore advocate for a comprehensive border security plan to prevent future events of this nature. A citizen safety plan should include identifying potential targets, using advanced technology, updating standard operating procedures for critical sectors, revising police training, fostering public-private partnership, citizens' involvement, and improving data collection and security training for employees in sensitive facilities. Citizens awareness campaigns must emphasize the importance of public vigilance as the first line of defense. The principle of if you see something, say something must remain at the forefront of national thought and action. The 9/11 system must become fully functional and responsive to enable security agencies to respond quickly to reports from the public. Our national security agencies require adequate funding, staffing, and technical resources, along with stronger coordination and strategic deployment of uniform and other personnel to safeguard our nation. Ghana possesses significant oil resources that can and must be used to modernize and reinforce our security framework. We remind the government that the search for solutions must be inclusive and that no single administration holds a monopoly on ideas for protecting our people. APNU makes clear that this moment demands decisive, coordinated action to ensure the safety and security of every citizen of Guyana. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norton. I now invite Dr. Campbell to read the second part of the press statement.
Thank you, Cynthia. The parliamentary opposition will field a shadow cabinet to ensure rigorous scrutiny of the executive and comprehensive representation across all sectors of government. This structure is vital to accountability, defending democratic norms, and advancing the interests of all citizens. In the current configuration of the National Assembly, the APNU has named its shadow cabinet to press the government on issues of transparency, accountability, institutional responsibility, and effective parliamentary engagement. These assignments are aimed at ensuring that every facet of government is robustly scrutinized and that the voices of the Guyanese people are represented with clarity, conviction, and competence. The following are the shadow portfolio assignments. Terence Campbell, Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Health. Dr. Dexter Todd, Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Legal Affairs. Ganesh Maipal, Ministry of Parliamentary Affairs and Governance and Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development. Riaz Rupnarain, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Saiku Andrews, Ministry of Public Works and Ministry of Public Utilities and Aviation. Coretta MacDonald, Ministry of Education and Ministry of Labor and Manpower Planning. Vince Roy Jordan, Ministry of Agriculture and the Office of the Prime Minister. Juretta Fernandes, Ministry of Amerindian Affairs and Ministry of Tourism, Industry and Commerce. Cheryl Duncan, Ministry of Home Affairs and Ministry of Housing. Nima Flubes, Ministry of Youth, Sport and Culture. Sharma Solomon, Ministry of Public Service, Government Efficiency and Implementation, and the Ministry of Natural Resources. Dr. David Hines, Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. With reference to our parliamentary legislative agenda, we will focus on advancing bills, motions, and questions with the aim of pressing the government to ensure transparency, accountability, and equity. The APNU members of parliament will continue to engage the people of Guyana to represent their interests and publicize their concerns by offering well thought out solutions.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. I now invite questions on the press statement.
Good morning to you, Dennis Chabon, Demerara Williams, to Mr. Norton or to Dr. Campbell. Could you say who will be shadowing the natural resources and specifically the oil and gas sector?
That's Mr. Sharma Solomon.
And who will be like experts guiding these shadow ministers apart from themselves focusing on them?
We have always had a situation where we identify persons and we form a group and they're advised. We always had an oil and gas group, and that group will now see Sharma Solomon in it, and that he will have advice from that group.
Dennis, I might add that also goes for the other ministries. For example, Foreign Affairs, our Foreign Affairs shadow will have the benefit of experts on foreign affairs to advise him, and those experts will include the leader of the PNCR and chairman of the APNU, Mr. Norton. So each ministry.
Such as Mr. Patterson, be engaged in providing advice to the APNU in its quest to represent the issues in the oil and gas sector and even public infrastructure in this parliament.
I see no problem in engaging Mr. Patterson. He's knowledgeable, and for us, there isn't a problem.
Any other questions on the press statement?
Yes, good morning, Adam Harris. Sir, you spoke about the bombing and the impact on the Safe City program. I don't know if you listened to what the police had to say about the suspect coming into Guyana in one day and doing all of that and appeared to be quite knowledgeable of the environment. I don't know about this registration thing. For example, under such conditions, how would you register someone who sneaks across the border to do what he wants?
Well, we believe that the government's approach is very limited and cannot be as comprehensive as it should be. If you listen to the press statement, and even before this, we had called for increased use in technology to be able to monitor our borders, etc. We always felt it was a good expenditure. When I listened to the Guyana Police Force, what was interesting to me, they were not at any stage given any indication of how they arrived at this information about the person. And then you saw the normal thing that comes from the police. Oh, the man confessed. It would have been much better if the police had shown us investigative skills, and that from their investigation, they had garnered certain information and can say with a certain level of sureness that this is the person. As it stands, I believe there are a lot of loopholes in what they have said and done, and one will have to wait and see. But I do not know what is the mechanism they use to tell me that this man came in the day, did this act, and then the man seemed to have had a place that he's knowledgeable at Virgin Eugene. and that they could go and find him. But put all of that apart. What you need is a system, and I raised this directly with President Irfan Ali in one of our meetings, and he told us in the presence of other members of parliament that the security force was up to it, and we were underestimating the work that they do. But it was evident since then that we did not develop the kind of security infrastructure that permit us to engage, scrutinize those persons. I remember saying in the public domain that Venezuela will take this opportunity to send agents. So, in my opinion, there hasn't been a proper approach to security to ensure that even the data they provided can be considered reliable. And I don't know about you, for the short period I watched the press conference, there was no exuding of confidence, in my opinion.
Any other questions on the press statement?
Yes, I have one. Mr. Norton, there has been a lot of talk by a number of US experts within the last 24 hours, and even before, about the high likelihood of regime change in Venezuela. My question to you then is, in that context, what exactly would you recommend that the Guyana government does with respect to avoiding a wave of migrants, both people of good character and bad character, entering the border? I'm not talking about the small numbers at this moment, but should there be any conflict in Venezuela, what would be your recommendation to deal with a wave of Venezuelans crossing the border into Guyana to escape any sort of West Venezuela conflict?
First, your comment of small numbers at present to me is not reflective of the reality. There are large numbers of Venezuelans here. I believe we have to tighten our border security. We also have got to I've said this before, up to speed with the technology to be able to monitor people coming in, etc. Now, there are certain points at which people come through. We should be able to monitor them. You will still have porous elements in the border. I don't believe that at this stage we are equipped to do what we should do. Because in the first instance, it will take you time to get the technology. And we have been raising this for the last 4 years, at least since I was leading the opposition. So I don't know that in the present circumstance, I think we have to minimize the effect, but I do not believe we have been preparing for such an avalanche. Now, may I also say that I answer the question without prejudice to your preconditional words of regime change in Venezuela. I am in no position to address the question of regime change in Venezuela. Like most people, I will have to wait and see. So my answer is premised on it as a possibility, not as I do believe there will be regime change. But having said that, there are certain things countries can do. They definitely cannot change their neighbors. Venezuela is one of our neighbors. Venezuela is very aggressive against us. And we, like I said in the presentation, we have to have an agile foreign policy approach that allows us to adapt based on the circumstance.
But do you believe that those things that you mentioned there can stem an avalanche?
Unless you didn't listen to me, I said if they were in place. I also said that in the present situation, I do not see us stemming an avalanche. I recall saying we will have to try and minimize the impact. But to the extent that we haven't established the technology, to the extent that we haven't trained people to do what is required, I think it will be difficult to stop the avalanche. But in the future, we will have to be paid in a much better way.
Any other questions on the press statement? I now invite any questions, general questions.
There is one a colleague sent via the chat. Perhaps you could read that because I have a question along the following line.
Okay. The question reads, I'd like to know whether there was an update as it relates to the appointment of the Chancellor and the Chief Justice. Has President Ali written to Mr. Norton regarding same?
Now, I don't know what update the person is looking for, but I can say to you that President Ali did send me a letter on the issue.
Follow up. You had earlier agreed to have the then acting chancellor and the chief justice confirmed. No action was taken. But since then, the acting chancellor has resigned. So would you care to share some thoughts on the resignation of the acting chancellor?
I can say this to you. From the inception with my engagements with President Irfan Ali, I made it very, very clear, as pellucid as I can, that I was not prepared to support the removal of Justice Cummins. Made that very clear. You're already aware that I am on record as saying I give consent for the appointment of Justice Cummins and Justice Wilshire a while back. The government did not pursue it. Now, I want to say this. The issue was raised with me, and I took the position that I had to hear from Janet Cummins herself that she had voluntarily agreed to go. I never managed to contact her. I never got the position. But I saw the president indicating that she had gone on retirement leave. That for me was enough to suggest that I shouldn't get involved in appointing a permanent chancellor and chief justice. However, in discussions, I asked the question, let's assume that she was legitimately out, which I didn't believe. I said, well, I didn't ask the question. I made the point that I was not prepared to make Justice Singh Chief Justice and confirm it. I was not prepared to do that. In fact, in speaking with one person who engaged, I said to that person, I had a problem with supersession and that there were other persons there who were of better character and didn't have some of the public outbursts that Singh had. And if they were offered, then there is some chance that I would have considered it if I was satisfied that one, the chancellor went away voluntarily, the acting chancellor went away voluntarily, and therefore there was need to appoint. But that didn't go anywhere because the government was very clear that they wanted him, and so it didn't budge from there. And had I actually, let's assume that they had agreed and chose one of the senior ones, like I said to people around me, I was going to consult with Azruddin on the issue before I make a decision.
Thank you.
That brings us to the question then, sir. Sorry, of the letter that President Ali wrote to you seeking the confirmation of Justice George. And I heard your position, but seeking the confirmation also of Justice Singh. Have you replied to him, sir?
No, I haven't. I didn't feel, we had a court case on what constitutes meaningful consultation. I wasn't prepared to confirm with them, and I didn't write because I didn't want the letter to be used as some form of consultation. Even on the first occasion when you wrote me on the issue, I did not respond. And I did not respond to this one because I know of the tendency of using anything you would have written as if you were meaningfully consulted. Don't forget that we took a case to court on that matter, and the Chief Justice acting at the time, Roxanne George, ruled that it was consultation. And since then, I have never ever become involved in that, except I'm clear, we're satisfied, and this is what we'll do, and then I will write. But I didn't respond.
Mr. Norton, but with time drawing near for the next parliament to convene after the last general elections, to what extent do you believe you might be losing a good opportunity to at least have Justice George confirmed as a substantive chancellor, in keeping with your earlier, well, holistically, your earlier wish for both herself and then Chancellor Cummings to be confirmed? Aren't you losing at least 50% of the opportunity here to get one of them confirmed?
I might not, in my opinion, be losing anything. We live in an ethnically divided society, and confirming Roxanne without confirming the other one can be utilized in a very negative way from an ethnic standpoint. I have been around politics long enough to know to do that would have kind of courted disaster. And so the position was taken to not do it. In my opinion, it's not about me. I don't care very much about these opportunities that you would have talked about. For me, it's a question of this nation, and the things we do must be done in a way that we don't allow those who would want to make it into an ethnic issue to do so. And so in the circumstance, I felt that I will not go down the road of confirming any one of the two. But I am on record as saying I have no problems with Justice Roxanne George. I also, in speaking to one of the interlocutors, for the want of a better word, made it very clear that Rishi Prasad and others who are senior could have been considered, and I was well disposed if those names were mentioned. But there is no way I would have just told the Caribbean Court of Justice president that I am opposed to supersession and then go and become involved in that. I couldn't do that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Yes, I have a question for Dr. Campbell. Now, sir, you are going to be the shadow minister responsible for finance. At present, you have a matter before the court. I think you're waiting a decision in December. I think I have it right. What would the outcome of that decision influence your operation as a member of the shadow cabinet for finance?
Good morning. Good morning, Adam. Being the shadow for finance allows me a parallel track in terms of addressing what I believe to be shortcomings in practice as they relate to the Natural Resource Fund. I think there is much left to be desired. This is public domain that I've called on the government for greater transparency in the spending of oil money. And so now being the shadow for finance in Parliament allows me to pursue that objective within the Assembly. So I cannot give you any indication what the outcome of the case will be. I hope the outcome of the case will be favorable to what I have advanced, but I now have a second front open to try to achieve what the case is aimed at achieving, and what I believe the Guyanese people deserve. Adam, let me say that oil money is non-renewable money. The oil money comes from a non-renewable resource. And so we have to be very careful with our spending of oil money. And so I felt strongly about this before formally entering the political domain. I still feel the same way. Perhaps I have my motivation and drive to achieving that has grown. And so this will be pursued in Parliament as well.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Before you go, one of the things I wanted to say that I should have said. In my opinion, what happened to Justice Cummins is a dangerous precedent. And it is unfortunate that this society doesn't speak out on issues like that. But it's a dangerous precedent, and clearly I would not have wanted to be part of that kind of thing. I did say to the president directly that apart from the fact that I know Justice Cummins, who was from Linden, and I knew the family, he himself had said at one time that she did a good job. And therefore, I felt her being removed was a bad precedent and not something I wanted to be associated with. If she had come out and said, well, look, I agree, etc., it might have been a different ballgame. But in the context of how it happened, no.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments?
I hate having to dog, this press conference by asking so many questions. There is a question I want to ask, and perhaps Mr. Mahipal might want to help me with this one. Now, you're responsible for local government in the shadow cabinet. What is happening in Region 10 with the town clerk actually refusing to convene a meeting of that council?
Adam, I would prefer to answer that. I don't know what the town clerk is doing. What I do know, it's a regional issue. The regional leaders are dealing with it and advising us, and we would not want to go down the road of commenting on that process unless we are well advised by the people involved in the region.
I see the hand of
Very well,
Mr.
sir.
Thank you. I see the hand of Mr. Benchcock. Please go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that. It's for either Mr. Norton, the leader, and the incoming MP, Dr. Campbell. News just coming in of the arrest of the leader of Azruddin Mohammed, presumably on an extradition warrant. Any such shakeup in Parliament now, with the absence of Azruddin Mohammed, I just would like to get your take, Mr. Norton and Dr. Campbell, on that.
Well, I don't know the details. As you're aware, we had a press conference and it has emerged that he has been arrested. Our position has always been, we must ensure that there's a rule of law in Guyana, and therefore whatever happens should operate within the confines of the law. And once they're operating within the confines of the law, we're comfortable. As it relates to its impact on the Parliament our parliamentary group and others in the party leadership will discuss it and work the way forward.
Sir, you talk about the rule of law. Guyana has slipped on the international monitoring of countries observing the rule of law. Why do you believe, given all that has been happening, that this government would adhere to the rule of law?
Well, I am well aware that the government doesn't adhere to the rule of law. If we had adhered to the rule of law, I think there would have been an investigation into Barajapio when the Sugate occurred. There were so many things that there should have been an investigation. But that doesn't mean that we don't ascribe to the rule of law and will continue to work to ensure things are done within the confines of the rule of law. May I say to you, no matter how problematic is a society, you have to look to solutions and you have to instill hope. We will continue to work to ensure that the rule of law is honored, but we are well aware that the government doesn't have a penchant for honoring the rule of law.
Adam, I would add to that within the last 10 days, we have seen from the ERC, the Jennifer Ali case, and from the police with the death of the shooting of the policeman at Vreden Hoop, to the way Justice Cummins was treated. I think this is just in the last, 7-9 days. We have seen a government committed to undermining the rule of law. But as the leader said, we in the APNU are firmly committed to the rule of law and to working to ensure that it's strengthened in Guyana.
I also wish to say this. There's such an inconsistency in this country. If you look at that young man who was the police, you kill a policeman, and you could find yourself in court and get $1 million bail. When the little boy do whatever song he did, I don't remember his name now. Baby Skello. You remanded him. And we had to find a lawyer to go and get him out. But the kind of police force in this government could watch a policeman gunned down by a businessman, and I put that in quotation mark, and he gets $1 million bail and goes home. The young lady that was accused of giving out information in the Adriana Young matter was remanded. But you have a man that commits murder. Not only is he remanded, but you didn't even go anywhere to a trial. You charge him for manslaughter rather than murder and allow the court to determine if it's murder or manslaughter. You're seeing the clear bias at the ethnic and other levels in the society.
Yeah, but that brings us to the point. I suppose the DPP or the office of the DPP would have recommended that charge, manslaughter. I have no idea of what evidence was presented to her or what kind of investigation the police did. Did anyone raise any question challenging the information that might have been provided to the DPP?
Well, I don't know that any information was provided to the DPP. They didn't say that. I found it interesting that it went to court very quickly, and then $1 million and a bail. I don't even want to engage in any talk about the DPP. It is clear that it is unfair and that justice is, or the laws are selectively used. I'm 99.9% sure that if you go and check the background of the police, the person who committed it, he is likely to be close to someone in the People's Progressive Party.
Mr. Benshock, you had a follow-up question?
Yeah, I wanted to touch on the agriculture sector. A lot of folks under quarantine, and this is directed to the incoming, I presume, Shadow Minister of Agriculture. Just forgive me, Mr. Jordan. What is your take and what are some of the complaints of farmers in your area? Because a lot of folks under quarantine are complaining that they're not getting the sort of attention from this regime. And the second question I have for Dr. Campbell, I have noticed that you guys have an aggressive, the incoming MPs and others of the PNCR, you guys have an aggressive approach on the ground. I'm sure it's just not limited to Georgetown or Region 4. But what are some of the complaints, which I think is commendable, but what are some of the complaints you guys have been hearing from the residents as it pertains to lack of good governance from this government? Thank you.
All right, thank you for your question, Mark. Well, firstly, I must say to you, one of the biggest cry and complaint by one of the largest sector of farmers, the rice farmers, is that they're not getting the price for paddy. But before we get to the price for paddy, we must understand that our market has collapsed simply because the amount of chemical that is found within the paddy that we are exporting, the European market has rejected our paddy. This is what the Minister of Agriculture was asked on many occasions by myself and others in the National Assembly, and he has refused to admit to that. Apart from that, there is no proper storage, any system that is set up to provide storage for farmers when they would have harvested their crops that they can store until a time when price might be right, or the case where government might buy or other millers might buy from them, and then they utilize when there is a shortfall. The case on the ground is that farmers are facing hardship going back to the fields because when they go to the mills and they're offered, in some cases in Berbice, Region 5 and 6, you're given $2,000, $2,800 per bag of paddy. And then in other cases, when you have the grading of the crops, of the paddy rather, you find that you lose far more. Some people go home with $1,000 a bag. And so the frustration to farmers and the level at which it is that farmers cannot return to the fields. Apart from that, you find that farmers are also complaining about the proper, I should say, work program of the extension officers. If you know, during our campaign or during the campaign, we would have promised that one of the things we will do, which we made a policy, is that we will ensure that we provide extension officers to every single community. We went so far to say to the Guyanese public that we will ensure that we have it in a systematic manner, that every NDC is afforded the opportunity to have persons in specialty of plant science, animal science, and so farmers don't have to leave their local area to go to GRDB at some location at Borma or come to Ogle to have assistance. But we have specialists right in the community. Hence, farmers don't find or they don't have the availability of these specialists, so that you find that crops are being destroyed because of the lack of persons who might have the knowledge on how to treat with, let's take for example, some insect issue, or let's take for example, a crop that is under a disease. And so farmers are complaining very much about that, and also the cost for farm supplies. The government went out there, I think it was when the president was being inaugurated, he made mention of the cutting costs for agricultural equipment. But when you go to the shop, in actuality, you find that the actual cost for some farming supplies, especially when it comes to cash crop farmers, it is a difficulty purchasing supplies for farms. And also you find that these benefits in terms of VAT removal and all of that, it takes effect at with the larger businessmen. They make the monies because they save from the importation, but the small man still has to pay the price that is normal. So there's no reduction, there is no benefit to the small man. So you still have to face the brunt of the cost for both supply, the production cost, and then in the end, when you harvest, it is a challenge to get a price that can really take you back to the farm.
Mark, you asked about, you mentioned our outreach and the aggressive, I think was your word to describe it. And yes, I can assure you that that outreach will be nationwide. And you will see MPs across the country continuing the outreach activity. The complaints are numerous, but I'll just mention a couple. Last week, leader at this press conference addressed the issue of water. And this week we were on Sideline Dam, and those residents complained that under the APNU AFC government, water mains had been run into their community. But as soon as the PPP came in, they abandoned that project. And so they still don't have direct water to that Sideline Dam community. They also complained that under the APNU AFC government, efforts had been taken to regularize the housing situation there. That too has been stagnant since 2020. And that's a complaint that we also heard in Plum Park, where the process of regularizing that community and transferring to the mayor and city council is also not moving. So these are some of the things, housing, water, and so on, water issues that we hear when we go out on those outreach missions.
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
Just one, and this is for Dr. Campbell. Sir, obviously a budget would have to be presented. How familiar are you with budget presentations so that you can be very, how do I want to say, very efficient during the budget debate? Bearing in mind that you are going to be the main PNC speaker, I think, on the budget.
Adam, let me say that some of it is obvious that I've never been involved in preparation of the national budget. However, it's close to 40 years ago that I was very much involved in the start of the budgetary process at the Hand in Hand insurance company. Just as we started to utilize an annual budget, I was very much involved in that. So I've been dealing with budgets and budgetary issues, not at the macro level, the national level, but at the corporate level for almost 40 years. I believe that some of the experience gained there will serve me well as I address the issue of the national budget. Let me also say that one of the things that 40 years in business has taught me is to recognize what I don't know and to seek help in order to become better informed on the process and analysis of the budget. You will find that I will bring a different approach than perhaps has been seen in the past by any shadow of finance in terms of dealing with the budget. I'm not going to reveal what the approach is, but I will lean on external resources, both internal in the PNC and external from the PNC. There is no Minister of Finance, be it Ashley Singh, Winston Jordan, Carl Greenwich, whoever, that can rely entirely on their own knowledge for budget preparation and policies and so on. You always have to turn to a bench of advisors to guide you and seek their counsel. And so as a shadow, I will do the exact thing. I'm not afraid to do so.
And in fact, this is just good business practice, and it's good practice for any shadow minister, whether you're shadowing finance or agriculture or anywhere. So I do have a bench from whom I will seek advice, and I will not be shy about seeking and interrogating that advice.
I can add, Dr. Camden's been modest, but in recent times, he has been contributing to our budget presentation. In fact, some of the information in my budget presentation 2024 was as a result of direct discussions with him. And so the first thing I want to say is that I am convinced that he's competent to handle finance. And the second thing I want to say is that he will have at his disposal many of the people who help us in terms of budget preparation. Like he said, it's not a one-man job.
I have a final question, if possible, please, Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. It has to do with what may very well be a shift in Parliament with regards to the high possibility that the leader of WIP, Azruddin Mohammed, is not going to go in Parliament. That's just my opinion based on the recent developments. Can the nation see a cooperation where both APNU and WIP decide on a possible APNU candidate, maybe the names such as Dr. Campbell be placed there to be elected as the opposition leader? Are you guys thinking of that sort of cooperation? And what about the deputy speaker? Or are we just going to wait until Parliament convenes to see some of the results? Are you guys putting up a candidate for the deputy speakership?
As a political party, we have discussed these issues in depth. And one of the decisions we took is that we're not going to put out there our position on the issues. We will wait to see how Parliament emerged. This one with Azruddin is a new one. But I would say we must of necessity cooperate or work with WIN. There are times when we work with the PPP. It is well known. I know people make a lot of noise but on the Ghana-Venezuela territorial controversy, we have always stood united because we believe it's the right thing to do, though a lot of times we don't support everything that they did. So I would say to you, we have done our discussions on the other issues. Now, with the announced arrest of Azruddin, we will have to go back to the drawing board and look at all the options and then formulate where we stand on this issue rather than sitting down here and just pointing out without the kind of discussions that is necessary for this kind of activity.
I know I've said final, Mr. Leader, and forgive you guys. I didn't join in the beginning, but has there been any sort of resolution with the chairman and the deputy chairman, the vice chair for Region 10?
Well, we did answer it and said that it has been handled by Region 10, and they will advise us and we will advise them. And at the appropriate time, we will say to the Guyanese people, this is the situation. But for now, it has been handled by the persons in Region 10.
Mr. Norton, as a veteran politician, do you believe that the arrest of Mr. Mohammed and possible extradition will now weaken his party?
I'm not a speculator. I'm a person who'd like to look at things and analyze them and then arrive at conclusions. I wouldn't give a premature judgment on an issue like that.
Thank you.
Okay.
And Mr. Norton, you were resting.
I'm still resting. I'm still resting.
You're not rest yet?
No, not at all.
And the party needs all legs on the ground as it stands now. Even as an old man, I still got my foot on the ground. I mean, don't you think you should just terminate the rest and return to the political scene?
I never said that I'm resting oblivious of work. In fact, that I am here is indicative of the fact that I punctuate the rest with work.
If there are no other questions, I want to thank the members of the media for your respectful participation today, and I want to thank the viewers for tuning in. Please do have an enjoyable weekend and be safe on our roadways. Thank you.